Hello everyone, Alex here from WarrenOffKeys.com, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can create a leveling system. So in a previous video, I explained how to start up a local Mongo server and view all the data using MongoDB Compass. A link to that will be in the video description. And if you've been following the series, then you've already created a coin system. We're going to be adding on top of that inside of our profiles collection here. So with that said, we can go into our schemas and go into our profile schema. Here we see our coins. We want to make a change to this. We see required is true. We want to remove that. And instead we want to say default is 0. So whenever we go to actually insert something into the schema, if coins is not present in the object we're inserting, then there'll be 0 there by default. After that, we're going to want to add XP. This will be a number. And then the default will be 0 as well. And then finally we want to add level. This will be a number, and then the default will be 1. So now I can save and close this file. We're done with that. I'm going to go back into my main directory for my project, and I'm going to make a new file called levels.js. So inside of this file, I'm going to go ahead and import my simple Mongo file, which allows us to connect to Mongoose very easily. So const mongo equals require mongo. And then I'm going to export a function. So module.exports. This is going to be a function that passes in a client as an argument. And we need to make sure that we're actually importing this inside of our main file. So import it with const levels equals require levels like this. And then call that function that we're exporting in, passing in the client right here. And we can go ahead and close this file. Now inside of here, we want to listen for whenever a user sends a message. So client.onMessage, and this will give us a callback with a message object. And then we can destructure two properties we need, such as guild and member, from the message object. Now I'm going to make another function here. This will be called addXP, and this will be an asynchronous function that has 3 arguments. The first one will be the guild ID, the second one will be the client ID, the third one will be XP to add. And then we're also going to export this function, so module.exports.addXP equals addXP, just in case we want to access it outside of this file. Now inside of here, we need to create a Mongo connection, so await Mongo. This returns a promise, so we can handle it with .then. And then we have an asynchronous function here that'll have our Mongoose object. At this point, we're actually connected to the database. So I can use try and finally. And under finally, I'm going to say mongoose.connection.close. This is going to be actually closing our connection after we're done with it. So inside of here, we actually want to import our schema file of profile schema. So const profile schema equals require. We're going to go into the schemas folder and then go to profile schema. Now in here, I can await profile schema dot find one and update. And this is going to take in 3 objects as parameters. The first one is going to be an identifier. This will allow us to actually identify the specific object we're looking for within our collection. So we have to pass in guild ID and client ID. So it'll return an object if these 2 things are matching. And so we're specifically talking about, actually, I just noticed a problem. This should not be the client ID. This should be the user ID. I'm not sure why I typed that. So I want the user ID and the guild ID. And so this is going to be talking about the specific user within a specific server. Now the second object is going to be what we're actually going to update. And we're going to use this as an update or an insert. And so we have to pass in the guild ID and the user ID as well, because if it does not exist within our collection, it'll actually insert it. And so we need those pieces of information inside of our document as well. Now afterwards, we're going to create an increment. This will actually increase something. And we're going to say XP will be increased by XP to add. This is something I covered in my coins video. And so this is actually just going to increment the existing XP field within the document. Now after that, we have some options here within this object. We can say upsert is true. This is going to be a combination of update and insert, and this is going to allow the document to be created if it doesn't exist, if these 2 values do not exist within the key value pair, or it's going to update it, and that means it's going to reinsert everything in here. These 2 things are irrelevant, they're just going to be the same thing afterwards, but what's important is we're actually incrementing or increasing our XP here. Now with all that said, we do want to gain access to the result of this, so const result. And this is going to return what was previously in the database before our increment here. So we can say new is true. And this will now return the result or whatever is after this operation is ran. We can confirm this with console.log result is result. I can then save this So now after that, we actually need to go through and call this function. So we can call add XP, passing in the guild ID, the member ID, and then let's give them 23 experience. So if I save this, I can then run the bot with node index.js. I can then go into Discord and I can say test. And we see our results right here. We see my experience is 23, my level is 1. If I go into Mongo and I click on refresh, you see the experience is 23 right here. Going back to our Visual Studio Code editor. So let's say that to level up, you have to pass a certain number of experience that's equal to your current level times 100. So if you are level 1, you then need 100 experience. If you're level 2, you need 200. If you're level 5, you need 500, etc. So it gets harder and harder to level up each time. So scrolling up, I can create a new function, const get needed XP. This is going to take in a level, and this is simply just going to return level times 100. So scrolling down, we can see in our result, we have our XP and our level, so we can destructure those, XP and level equals result. After that, we can get how much we need, so const needed equals get needed XP, passing in our level, and then we can say if XP is greater than or equal to needed, we could then increment level, and so we have to change this constant to a let because we're actually going to change both of these variables here. So we could say plus level, and then XP is minus equal to needed. Now the reason for this, let's say we have a level 1 user, this will require 100 experience, and then let's say that they had 80 experience, and that we're going to add 25 hypothetically, so that's going to give us 105. Now at this point, we want to level up the user, so level now equals 2. And then we want to actually reset the experience or take away whatever was necessary. So we can say 105 is now minus equal to needed, which is 100. And so now they have access to 5 experience after that. So now they're level 2 with 5 experience. Over beforehand, they were level 1 with 105. And so this is how we're going to correctly increment their level here. And so now that they have this, we can actually tell them that they leveled up. So now we need to actually pass in the message so we can reply to it. So we can get a message here, and then I can pass in message right here. After that, we have access to the message. So down here, we can say message.reply with a template literal. We can say you are now level with XP experience. So now we actually notify the user, and now we need to save this new information here to the database. So you see this if statement is only going to change or mutate these values if we actually leveled up. And so we can actually use another Mongo query right in here. We can say await profile schema dot update 1. This is going to have in 2 objects as arguments here. The first one's going to be an identifier, and so we can pass in the guild ID and the user ID. So guild ID, user ID. And the second one is going to be what we actually want to update. So in here, we can pass in level and XP. And so these are the variables that we pulled from our previous query, and then we did some changes to them. And so now we want to update it in the database. So if I save this and I restart, I can then go into Mongo Compass, and we see that I have 23 experience. If I go back to my tutorial channel, I can say test. And then if I go back here and I refresh, we now see I have 46. I'm going to say test a couple more times. Now we see right here, you are now level 2 with 15 experience. So if I go back into Compass and I refresh, we now see level is 2 and my experience is 15. That's because it kept adding 23 experience, which is what I'm adding right here, until we went past 100. And then the remainder after removing 100 is 23. Now at this point, it would take me 200 experience to get to the next level. We can actually mention that here. So you are now level with this much experience. You now need, and then here we can actually call the get needed XP because we have a new level variable. And so because we increment it here, and so this needed is now obsolete. So you now need, and then we're going to call in this function, which will tell us how much we need. XP to level up again. Now if I save this and I restart the bot, if I send some more messages here. Okay, so finally we get to level 3 and I have 6 leftover experience. I now need 900 experience to level up again because now I'm level 3. So we got 3 times 100. And so we get 900 experience to level up. And so it's going to get harder and harder to level up. If you want it to be a more linear system where you just need an extra 100 experience, then under this function right here, get needed XP, you can just do level times 100. And that's going to give you where level 1 you need 100, level 2 you need 200, etc. However, I want it to be more difficult, so in my use case, I'm just going to do this calculation here. And so this is how you're going to create a very basic leveling system using Discord.js. Thanks for watching this Discord.js tutorial. If you want to learn more about Discord.js, consider clicking on the playlist you see on your screen now. If you need help, feel free to leave a comment or ask in the Worn Off Keys Discord, which can be found in the video description.